Fame is the fastest drug in America, and some stars overdosed hard. One bad choice, one scandal, one night that should have stayed off camera, and boom, the career is gone. From red carpets to rock bottom, this list exposes the icons who didn't just fall off the Hollywood map, they set the map on fire themselves. No filters, no mercy, just brutal Hollywood self-destruction. 1. Harvey Weinstein. The kingmaker who burned the kingdom down. Power didn't slip away from Harvey Weinstein. It detonated. For decades, he wasn't just producing movies, he was deciding careers. Oscars, red carpets, prestige films. If Weinstein liked you, doors opened. If he didn't, they slammed shut. Actors feared him and studios obeyed him. Hollywood revolved around his phone calls. Then, the curtain ripped open. Years of whispered stories suddenly exploded into public investigations. Dozens of women accused Weinstein of serious misconduct and systematic abuse of power, painting a picture far darker than the trophies suggested. The industry froze, and allies vanished overnight. The same town that once protected him sprinted for the exits. In 2020, Weinstein was convicted in New York and sentenced to decades in prison, followed by a second conviction in Los Angeles. The man who once controlled award seasons now controlled nothing. His films still exist, but his name became untouchable. Statues were removed and credits were scrubbed. Weinstein didn't just fall, an entire system went down with him. 2. R. Kelly. The music stopped, then everything collapsed. One voice, decades of hits, and a fall louder than the music. For years, R. Kelly wasn't just an R&B star. He was an industry machine with chart-topping hits and Grammys that defined a generation. Fame shielded him and money protected him. Until it didn't. Rumors that followed him for decades finally turned into investigations, and investigations turned into courtrooms packed with cameras. Prosecutors described a long pattern of manipulation and criminal behavior that shattered his public image piece by piece. In 2021 and 2022, convictions followed, and R. Kelly was sentenced to decades behind bars. The fallout was absolute. Record labels cut ties, and streaming platforms distanced themselves. Radio stations stopped playing songs that once felt unavoidable. There was no comeback tour, no redemption arc, just silence where the music used to be. R. Kelly didn't slowly fade out, he was unplugged. 3. O.J. Simpson. The verdict that split America. One chase, one trial, and one verdict that turned television into a national obsession. O.J. Simpson was once the definition of American success, an NFL legend and movie star with a smile the country trusted. That changed in 1994 when a slow-speed Bronco chase stopped the nation. What followed wasn't just a courtroom case, it was a cultural earthquake. When the verdict was announced, the reaction split the country in two. In a later civil case, Simpson was held financially responsible and ordered to pay significant damages, causing his wealth to evaporate. Years later, a separate criminal conviction related to an armed incident sent him to prison, sealing his fall from grace. O.J. Simpson didn't just lose a career, he lost the benefit of the doubt forever. 4. Michael Richards. One moment erased a lifetime of laughter. Michael Richards was comedy royalty, forever immortalized as Kramer on Seinfeld. With endless reruns, he never needed another hit. Hollywood had already stamped him a legend. In 2006, during a stand-up set, a heckle flipped a switch. Richards exploded into an offensive onstage rant that was recorded and went viral before apologies could even be written. Overnight, the man who made millions laugh became the face of a career-ending meltdown. Even with Jerry Seinfeld standing beside him, Hollywood moved on. Richards didn't fade out, he vanished. 5. Scott Baio. From teen idol to Hollywood ghost. Scott Baio was once everywhere, the lovable face of Happy Days and Charles in Charge. He was America's clean-cut teen idol with a future locked in. Then the image cracked. As the years passed, Baio's off-screen life began pulling more attention than his acting. Public controversies and legal disputes kept his name in headlines, but not for roles. Networks grew cautious and producers backed away. Hollywood simply moved on. Baio didn't lose fame overnight. He lost relevance slowly, painfully, and publicly. 6. Amanda Bynes. When the laughter stopped. She was chaos in sneakers, loud, fearless, and genuinely hilarious. Amanda Bynes basically ran Nickelodeon. From The Amanda Show to She's the Man, she looked like a child star built to last. Then the fun disappeared. As Bynes entered adulthood, her off-screen life unraveled through legal trouble and erratic public behavior. Studios backed away and projects vanished. By the mid-2000s, Bynes stepped away from acting entirely. later speaking about mental health struggles and substance abuse. There was no explosive scandal, just a slow, painful unraveling in public view. 7. Terrence Howard. One ego and a door that never reopened. Terrence Howard was everywhere in the mid-2000s, Oscar-nominated and charismatic. When Iron Man debuted in 2008, Howard was positioned for Marvel superstardom. However, contract disputes and clashing personalities derailed everything. Marvel chose to recast his role with Don Cheadle, and Howard's front-row seat in a billion-dollar universe vanished. Though Empire briefly reignited his star power, public disputes with the network ended that abruptly. In the end, Howard talked himself out of the room. 8. Chevy Chase. Derailed by his own punchlines. Before the jokes turned awkward, Chevy Chase was comedy, a founding star of SNL and box office gold. But behind the scenes, stories of clashes with co-stars and a reputation for being difficult piled up. A messy exit from the show community aired his dirty laundry in real time, and the narrative flipped from comedy icon to too hard to work with. The industry didn't need to cancel him, they just stopped inviting him to the party. 9. Sean Young, the whisper that outran the talent. Sean Young burst onto the scene in the early 80s with Blade Runner. Hollywood saw a future leading lady, but things went sideways. On-set conflicts and a reputation for being unpredictable began to follow her. The final straw came when she publicly campaigned for roles she didn't get, sometimes showing up to auditions uninvited. Hollywood backed away, and she was labeled too complicated, the most dangerous word in casting. Young didn't lost Hollywood in whispers. 10. Tom Sizemore. Running out of second chances. Tom Sizemore stole scenes in Saving Private Ryan and Heat. Directors loved his intensity, but off-screen addiction battles and arrests turned his momentum into mayhem. Studios flinched and insurance balked. The actor known for playing men on the edge started living there full-time. Comebacks teased hope, but the pattern repeated until trust left the room. Sizemore didn't lack ability, he simply ran out of second chances. 11. Corey Feldman. The spotlight survivor who stayed too long. He was famous before he was old enough to understand what fame was. Corey Feldman ruled the 80s as the ultimate child star. The Goonies, Stand By Me, The Lost Boys. He had the hits, the attention, and a front-row seat to Hollywood's wild side. For a moment, it looked like he'd grow up to rule the industry. Then, growing up actually happened. As the years passed, Feldman's acting career drifted while his personal life stayed loud. Public struggles, controversial interviews, and constant attempts to reclaim relevance pulled focus away from his talent. His music projects confused audiences, and his documentaries, aimed at exposing the industry's dark underbelly, often felt like chaotic cries for help that Hollywood wasn't ready to answer. 12. Mickey Rourke. The comeback that came too late. Mickey Rourke was once the industry's dangerous fantasy. Raw talent, movie star looks, and a presence that felt completely unpredictable. In the 1980s, films like 9½ Weeks made him a top-tier leading man. Then, he made a choice. Hollywood never forgives. He walked away. At the height of his fame, Rourke turned to professional boxing. The decision cost him years of momentum and physically altered his face beyond recognition. When he finally tried to return, the industry barely knew where to put him. In 2008, the wrestler delivered a near miracle, an Oscar nomination, and a shot at redemption. But the second act slipped away faster than the first. Public feuds and on-set tension returned, proving a brutal truth. You might earn one comeback, but wasting it is a luxury the industry never allows twice. 13. Wesley Snipes. The hero who forgot the rules. Before superheroes ruled the world, Wesley Snipes was the blueprint. As Blade, he delivered the swagger and box office power that proved comic book movies could work. He didn't just star in action films. He owned the genre. Then, the off-screen plot twist hit harder than any stunt. At the peak of his fame, Snipes' battles weren't with villains, but with the IRS. Legal troubles over tax issues spiraled into a 2010 prison sentence. While he was behind bars, Hollywood didn't wait. Franchises were rebooted, and younger stars took his place. When Snipes returned, the landscape had changed, and the man who once carried a genre on his back found himself relegated to the sidelines. 14. Brendan Fraser. Swallowed by the machine. Brendan Fraser didn't crash, he vanished. At his peak, he was everywhere. The Mummy turned him into a global icon who could do action, comedy, and heart all at once. Then, the silence set in. Years of physically demanding stunts left him with chronic injuries and multiple surgeries. Combined with personal struggles and an industry that felt increasingly cold after he spoke up about an assault by a high-ranking executive, Fraser was pushed to the margins. For nearly a decade, the man who once held the world's attention disappeared. While his 2022 win for the Whale was a historic triumph, it served as a haunting reminder of the years the machine took from him while it kept running without looking back. 15. Katherine Heigl. Honesty as a career killer. Katherine Heigl was Hollywood's golden girl in the mid-2000s, positioned as the next big romantic comedy queen. She had the look, the timing, and a massive hit in Grey's Anatomy. Then, she broke the unwritten rule: never complain when you're winning. By publicly criticizing the writing on her own show and speaking bluntly about her films, she earned the difficult label. In Hollywood, that label spreads like a virus. Offers slowed, roles shrank, and studios quietly moved on to more compliant talent. 16. Misha Barton. The cost of growing up. Under a microscope, when the OC exploded, Misha Barton became the face of a generation. Hollywood crowned her early and fast, but the whiplash of sudden fame was too much. Public stress, legal trouble, and a premature exit from her hit show turned her momentum into a series of question marks. Unfortunately, the industry didn't wait for her to find her footing. It moved on to the next new face. She didn't implode in one headline. She faded in real time. A reminder that Hollywood loves youth but rarely teaches it how to survive. 17. Paul Rubens, the character that outgrew the man. Paul Rubens wasn't just an actor, he was Pee Wee Herman. He built a multi-million-dollar universe that was inseparable from his own identity. In 1991, an arrest during a personal incident at an adult theater erased all nuance. The distinction between the man and the character collapsed instantly. Networks pulled reruns, and Pee Wee vanished overnight. While he slowly returned to work years later, the cultural magic never fully recovered. He quickly lost the public's benefit of the doubt. 18. Orlando Brown, the internet spectacle. Orlando Brown was the high-energy standout of That's So Raven, a Disney kid with perfect comedic timing. But as he entered adulthood, his public behavior became the headline. Arrests and chaotic viral interviews replaced casting news. Hollywood quietly stepped away. Brown lost its career frame by frame on social media, proving that child star fame and adult stability don't always grow up together. 19. Kevin Sorbo, talking his way out of the room. As Hercules, Kevin Sorbo ruled 90s television. He was a global hero with an unbreakable fan base. Then, the battles moved off screen. As Sorbo became increasingly vocal about his political and social views, his acting credits began to shrink. Hollywood didn't try to silence him. It simply stopped inviting him back. He continued to work, but in niche projects far from the mainstream spotlight. He talked his way out of relevance, proving that being loud can be more dangerous than being forgotten. 20. Kevin Spacy. The House of Cards collapses. If there was ever a king of Hollywood who watched his entire empire dissolve in a matter of weeks, it's Kevin Spacy. He was a titan. With 2 Academy Awards and a decade-defining run as the ruthless Frank Underwood in House of Cards, Spacy held a level of prestige that few in history ever reach. He was the artistic director of London's Old Vic Theatre, a frequent guest at high society galas, and an actor whose name on a poster practically guaranteed an Emmy or an Oscar. Then, in late 2017, the floor gave way. Multiple allegations of serious misconduct and predatory behavior surfaced, spanning decades and continents. The fallout was fast and surgical. Netflix killed off his character and spent millions to scrub his presence from the final season of his own show. In a move that was truly unprecedented, director Ridley Scott spent $10 million to literally erase and replace Spacy from the completed film All the Money in the World just weeks before its release. Christopher Plummer stepped into the role, and the industry sent a clear message. Spacy had been deleted. Today, Spacy is a symbol of the total erasure era. At the end of the day, these stories all share one brutal truth. Hollywood is a machine fueled by trust and momentum. When you break that trust, whether through ego, scandal, or simply being too much of a risk, the machine doesn't stop to fix you. It just finds a new part.